Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of Advanced Motorsports is to demonstrate the speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Another great race in the Precision Racing League. Green flag flies, we're underway. Side by side, door to door contact. Incredible action here in the PRL. After all the fighting, it ends in tears.
Hello everyone, welcome to RaceSpotTV for the second last time in 2024 Season 3. We are racing here in the MX5 and GR86 series in the Precision Racing League. We're at Willow Springs Raceway. This is something that I've been looking forward to for quite some time, a highlight track of this season to add to the great action we're going to see in the Super Formula Series later on tonight. I'm Reese Gardner. Mark Kalin is with me in the comms box to bring you through this tonight. And Mark, well, we go to a classic American road racing circuit here for the second last round of our production car series.
Yeah, really excited to be here at Windy Willow. I've been watching practice the last 30 minutes or so, and these guys are really pushing the limits and boundaries of this track. And got to be honest, Reese, it's going to make for some exciting action.
Yeah, plenty of exciting action at Willow Springs International Raceway. And we go to Virginia International Raceway to find ourselves at the end of the season. It's been a fantastic season of tracks here. Starting off at Winton, it was a chaotic round. Oschersleben, unfortunately, we had to miss with Nürburgring coming back to the season. And highlighting some very big drama, I think, at pretty much every track here. We've had some kind of crazy incident, some kind of epic battle, and some kind of drama deciding the race result, and it's turned out to be quite close indeed. Going through the 8 rounds that have been run so far, it has been the Brett Gardner show, it has to be said. In the GR86 Drivers' Championship, he is 13 points ahead of Andrew Sharp coming into this round. Andrew is still in touch for the Drivers' Championship in the GR86 category. He just needs Brett Gardner to have a couple of bad results here at the end of the season. Maxime David has absolutely thrown himself up the order in recent rounds, with Jake Cummings and Jean-Sebastien Bedard only separated by a grand total of 0. Matthew Wyckoff a single point behind them. Gwinnett, Douglas, Wildman, and Brown round out your GR86 drivers. With Tech Sport Academy by AMS, Gardner and his teammate Jake Cummings well ahead in the team standings. I think it'll only take a double retirement from Tech Sport Academy, really, to find the no team challenging for that top position in the GR86 Teams Championship. Meanwhile, in the MX5s, it is a fantastic run for Lincoln Fox, Pat Labrosse, and Michael Chase, the Itasca Point trio that we've seen competing at every round of the season so far. It's close between Labrosse and Chase for that second position. Lincoln Fox with a slight more advantage. Peter Moller and Austin Bartlett Chase, they've got a lot to play for. They just need to show up and make sure that they get those results, but it's difficult in the face of Fox, Labrosse, and Chase seeing the results that they've gotten over the course of the season. They've definitely had this sorted out. And speaking of sorted out, Itasca Point in the team standings, I mean, there's not really much else to say other than sheer domination by Itasca Point, green and blue. Solpec Precision Racing MX5, which is largely represented by Peter Moller, all the way down on 286 points. They will not be able to catch them up by the end of the season. And the likes of Big Fast Racing, Heartland Autosport, and ASA Motorsports have certainly got a lot of work to do, especially considering the majority of the drivers that started the MX5 season have stopped showing up here at the tail end. Hopefully we get a few more MX5s for the final round next week here, in a series that is brought to you by a lot of hardworking people at the Precision Racing League, as well as some fantastic sponsors like Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code at checkout. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount there too, using the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Muradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Murad. Muradness.com, also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. MrHedge.co.uk, also on Facebook and Instagram. And last but not least, get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Threads. They're absolutely everywhere. So, it is time we get ourselves into qualifying here at Willow Springs, and we see here Andrew Sharp, trying his best to work his way around this circuit. I think the Bucky's cap is giving him a little bit of extra luck here, Mark, because he's currently second in qualifying.
Yeah, so far so good for Andrew Sharp, currently P2, like you said. With the Buc-ee's hat, just found out that he just made his first visit to a Buc-ee's just this past week. So yeah, he said he had a good time and definitely tasted the barbecue brisket and said it was worth a try. It was delicious according to him. But currently on board with who is this right here? The number 24.
That is Sharp.
I was looking at a different paint scheme apparently. I forgot that's what Andrew looked like, but he wasn't here last week, so I forgot what his paint scheme was. That's my apology to Andrew and to Andrew's fans. But yeah, over here at Willow Springs, Andrew Sharp running wide through the corner here, trying to maximize his efforts to make a bit of a faster lap. Doesn't need much, just 3/100ths of a second, Reese.
Yeah, indeed. I'm very familiar with Andrew Sharp's paint scheme because Vermilion Motorsports actually competes in just about every major sim racing series down here in Australia. So, yeah, very widespread team in my part of the world. So we shall see if Andrew Sharp will be able to improve on his final couple of laps here. Jean-Sebastien Bedard is currently the top of the GR86s. Lincoln Fox is top of the MX5s. We have Aaron Myers in the MX5 turning up this round. Interesting to see. We shall see if Maxime David, teammate to Jean-Sebastien Bedard, will be able to help his teammate out any up in this really high top part of the circuit, right up the top of the hill. I love the way that this track follows the terrain. There's so many cambered corners around here, but they're difficult to get right. They seem to tighten up out of nowhere. Willow Springs is one of those tracks that has preserved the exact same layout it opened with more than 50 years ago.
And that's really saying something for a racetrack, Reese. A lot of these tracks have undergone major renovations and changes, but not Willow Springs. Maybe a repave here or there, but the layout and the dimensions of the track have been relatively similar all throughout its history. So that's really a standalone feature for a lot of racetracks to be able to say that. And honestly, it works for him. I think it puts on great racing here at Willow Springs. You got that short curb in the corners that if you hit it just right can really knock your car around. And then you've got dirt on both sides, which is extra slick on these semi-race tires. So it just makes for really tricky as we see Michael Chase hitting the fence. I wasn't sure if he's going to go through it or not.
Yeah, what fence is that? Wow, he was so far off the circuit, I don't even know where he was. Yeah, I said more than 50 years ago. I should say probably around about 60 or 70 years ago, because Willow Springs opened in the 1950s. So, yeah, this place has been challenging drivers for longer than the vast majority of us have been alive. It really is a fantastic circuit, this. And yeah, you mentioned the dirt lining the edges of the racetrack. This track is in the real sort of semi-arid area of California, out near the desert. So it's hot, it's dry, and it is sunny pretty much the whole time. We'll see what Aaron Myers can do here in the MX5. Myers recently taking second place in the GT4 Drivers' Championship in the LMP3 GT4 series on Monday nights, and now it's the end of that season for him. He's deciding to let it rip in an MX5. Not doing too bad, currently third of the MX5 standings, and it looks like Jean-Sebastien Bedard has had the end of his run go there. He secured third at the very least. Matthew Wyckoff with a fantastic time, actually, a bit further up than I was expecting him. He's only a 10th off Andrew Sharp's time, which still has yet to be beaten here at the top of the field. Let's see what Keith Gwinnett can do to try and match it.
Yeah, Keith Gwinnett coming across the line now. Does not look like that's going to improve his time. He's going to remain in 7th, about 2/10 off of his fastest lap currently. Back on board with Aaron Myers in the Ricky Bobby tribute, the me car with the Cougar on the hood. I'm going to say he's being a copycat because that's what my Xfinity Series cars looks like on Wednesday nights. But here we are. It's a great paint scheme. It looks great on the Mazda, and hopefully, just like Ricky Bobby, it'll show him some speed here. We'll have to wait and see as he comes around the final corners now. It's a wide apex entry, sweep down to the curb, swing out wide, and just like the last lap, he's going to go a little too far wide, and I think he's going to go ahead and say he's done.
Yeah, that final corner is so difficult, isn't it? You know, you're flat out through the sweeping right bend all the way up to it, and then you got to try and line up your way into that final corner. Once again, the curb's very, very thin and very harsh, as you mentioned just before, so you cut it a bit too much, you're going to have a bad time. But if you run even a bit wide of the apex, you're also going to have a bad time. I wonder how many cars we're going to see out there tonight as the session is about to end here, and Lincoln Fox, it looks like, is not going to be able to make it round another lap. So we should go through the grid then. We have 11 GR86s and 4 MX5s, headed up by Andrew Sharp and Matthew Wyckoff. John Sebastian Bedard and Graham Wildman are starting third and fourth. The third row of the grid taken up by Ian Brown and Maxime David. Keith Gwinnett and Jake Cummings will line up 7th and 8th. We have championship leader Brett Gardner starting down in 9th, with Josiah Douglas rounding out the top 10. We also had Dan Elgin in here setting laps in practice, but not a lap in qualifying. In the MX5s, it's Fox, Chase, Myers, and Cowgill, your starting order. So we shall see if they're able to have a clean race here at the very least, with a nice little formation lap around Willow Springs to come. We'll get to dissect this circuit in detail.
Yeah, and with that starting grid out of the way, Reese, what is your biggest standout from that starting grid? Or your biggest surprise, I should say?
I'd say probably, Wyckoff being up so high. In the rounds that he's done, he's usually been further down, probably challenging for the top 5 at least. And also Brett Gardner, not setting a time that's anywhere near what he set in previous rounds. He might be in a bit of trouble for the championship lead if he can't make his way swiftly forward in the race.
Yeah, that was my biggest standout as well, was Brett Gardner back in P9. But I raced with Brett in the GT3 Fix Series on Tuesdays, and for many races, he does start in the back by not setting a lap. I assume by either just not even trying or pushing too hard and getting a 1X. But it usually does not take him long to drive through a 25 car field or more and get his way to the top. So I expect that out of Brett Gardner tonight, but we'll have to wait and see, just like the rest of you folks out there watching.
Yep, he'll be making use of the slipstream down the straight, as will Patrick Cowgill, I'd imagine, starting behind Lincoln Fox and Michael Chase, as well as Aaron Myers starting alongside him. And there's so many fast corners around this place as well. Fortunately, we're in cars that really prioritize cornering speed and handling over straight line speed. So we're going to be seeing some big slipstream battles down the straight and into the final sector. And we're going to be seeing some big moves through those super fast corners. 80 degrees Fahrenheit out there on track at the moment, 27 degrees Celsius, which is a bit cooler than I was expecting. It's only round about 9 a.m. In sim time, so the sun isn't quite beating down on the racetrack like it usually does. We're going to be seeing some good grip out of these cars.
Yes, we are, which just makes the race all that much more treacherous, especially for these championship contenders in the GR86s, because with the high-speed corners means you're going to have to be a little bit extra risky with trying to make a pass here, and may end up to some bold sins into the corner.
Yeah, there'll probably be some bold sins into this section of the circuit. The twisties up the very top of the hill. If there's a bad run out of turn 2, then coming into 3 and 4, you'll have a go, and then you have to try and keep it to the inside as much as you can for turns 4 and 5. run out wide just a little bit here coming into turn 6, and then this is another corner that's going to define the action. This corner at the bottom of the dip here. We have not much in the way of runoff that will help you get back onto the racetrack, and it tightens up on the exit, as you can see. So let's see what the drivers will be able to do with that all in their heads at the moment. Just making the run through the final 2 turns.
And meanwhile, down that section, Reese, it's all downhill, so you're even faster than you normally would be.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of elevation change at Willow Springs here as final weaves happen for Graham Wildman. Let's see what he can do in the Soy Boys racing car. Obviously got a lot of fans in the YouTube chat on Monday nights in the GTP and GT3 series, and they'll be right back here to see him try and get onto the podium here tonight in the GR86 class. Andrew Sharp on pole position. He is in prime spot to make up huge grounds on Brett Gardner in the GR86 Drivers' Championship. And we wait for the call of the green flag now, with the pace car just touring sedately through the final corner and pulling into the pits momentarily. How early does Andrew Sharp decide to go here in the GR86s? He goes now as they pass pit entry, and we are away. Green flag flies, and the GR86s are go. And the MX5s will be going very shortly as well. They're on the power too. Lincoln Fox leads the way in that class, but it's side by side for second in GR86, with Wyckoff defending from Jean-Sebastien Bedard, going around the outside of the exit. Good run from Graham Wildman as well. He's trying his best to get up the inside of Bedard at turn 2, and a tighter line around here. It's amazing the speed that they're carrying, 155 kilometers per hour at the apex for the GR86s, as Aaron Myers has made his way up into second in the MX5s. Michael Chase back to third, but the GR86s are now starting to get into the business end of this racetrack.
Yep, coming around the uphill right-hander into the downhill section of the track. Everybody looking to be single file currently. Not any moves at the moment. Coming into a little bit of a braking zone on the left-hander. A little bit of a wiggle from Wyckoff there. He managed to get it back together. Great awareness from Graham to not get into the back of him there as well.
Yeah, but this is going to be the advantage that Graham Wildman has been hoping for. Can he get into second place? He's already on the podium. He's going to be stuck on the outside coming into the final corners. It's so hard to pick the turn-in point for the last corner here. Wyckoff will have a tighter entry, and he might have trouble on the exit. Wildman is going to cut down low and try and find a way through, but he is hard across the curb, and that's ruined his exit. That'll bring Jean-Sebastien Bedard right back into the battle for third spot.
Yeah, just like I mentioned earlier, those curbs can be killer for your momentum. But Jean-Sebastien making a great move to secure third place and sets his sights ahead on Matthew Wyckoff in the Valhalla Motorsports car. Meanwhile, Ian Brown is making a move on Maxime David here, trying to secure fifth place, and does so.
He does, not without a little bit of a tap to the side in turn 2 there. He vaulted in quite hard. Jake Cummings and Brett Gardner haven't made much headway. They are both up one position. They've put Keith Gwinnett down to 9th, but this is only the start of their potential run
Here
up
comes
this
Jake
field.
on the left side of Maxime here. And
Yeah,
he's
oh
returning.
no! Maxime David sent off into the berm, and Cummings is going to spin off in sympathy and end up on his roof.
Oh my goodness.
Oh dear. That's a big incident.
As if these teams don't have enough history all season long. Tech Sport and their, I'm going to say, arch nemesis just have been going at it all season long, and it comes to fruition again here at Willow Springs.
Yeah. Jake Cummings having to tow back to pit lane thanks to, unfortunately, getting a bit too much side grip on the gravel and flipping over after turning Maxime David around. We'll see what happened here. It was on corner exit, David going to the outside of the track, but Cummings was still there. There was still some overlap, so I don't think Cummings is going to have much of the blame for that, but just unfortunate for him to roll like that.
And it was such a lazy flip too, Reese. Like, you did not expect that to happen, and then it happens. And it's just super inopportune and very unfortunate for both of these drivers to have an incident so early, but more so I would say for Jake Cummings, as he did have to take a tow back to the pits.
Yeah, and you can definitely see from the onboard there was nowhere for Cummings really to go. It looked like Maxime was just tracking to the outside of the corner, and Cummings was still there. So I think that might just turn out to be a racing incident in the end if the stewards do take a look at that. So the MX5s have found themselves past Josiah Douglas and Maxime David in the GR86s. Aaron Myers, we saw that he wasn't quite nailing his qualifying laps, but he is absolutely repping it up in the race. Lincoln Fox looking like he's under some pressure there, as Josiah Douglas will have to give up the position to Maxime David coming into the final corner here.
Yeah, Maxime starting his recovery drive, sets his sights on the two MX5s ahead. Excuse me, which I'm pretty confident he's faster than. So he's just going to have to pick his time of where he wants to make the moves to get by these guys, because it is a long way up the road to Keith Gwinnett for P7.
Graham Wildman getting up the inside of Jean-Sebastien Bedard once again, and then he's fighting his way back into the GR86 top three, but they come together on the exit of turn 2. Fortunately, the track is wide enough that they're still able to keep going there, and Wildman will be super late on the brakes to try and keep the outside line, which will become the inside for the next sequence. And I think geometrically he'll have the advantage, but look at the run around the outside here from Bedard. He is not letting Wildman get away with this easily, still side by side, and they're costing each other time. This will give Ian Brown a massive advantage on board with the number 83, and he's going to at least get Maxime David coming into, get Bedard, coming into the final corner. Can he get Wildman as well? 3 wide into the penultimate corner.
And contact between Wildman and Bedard as well for good measure. But great stuff from Graham and Jean-Sebastien to keep it clean and keep it really tight and interesting through that middle sector of the track. Meanwhile, Graham going to line up a pass here on Ian Brown and return the favor. And here comes Jean-Sebastien with a bump draft.
Yes, he's helping Graham Wildman by. I think both of them realize that, hey, this front. Oh yeah, that's
Jake Cummings.
Yeah,
came out right in front of these guys.
Yeah. Oh, Brown gets into Wildman coming into turn 2. Oh, yeah, okay, so Jake Cummings has turned out to be a bit of a spanner in the works here, re-emerging from the pits after having to tow thanks to that flip, and all contact again. Bedard getting into the back of Brown. This is such an entertaining battle, and speaking of battles, the lead is going off as well. We see that Sharp and Wyckoff are still very close together. This is turning into a very intense race, more intense than I expected in GR86.
I couldn't agree more with you there, Reese. This is definitely, especially this early in the race, we are only 7 minutes into this race, and the intensity is at a 12 out of 10. Elbows are out, fenders are getting dented. It's just been phenomenal to watch, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, Reese.
Brett Gardner's found his way into this fight for third as well. He's taken advantage of the comings together and the slowing up going side by side, and he is now potentially going to grab a podium out of this if he plays his cards right. A great recovery from Brett Gardner after not nailing qualifying. Bedard up the inside of Ian Brown will get him into turn 1 with a bit of contact. They are absolutely pushing door panels and taking off wing mirrors coming into these super fast corners. I'm loving this.
Yeah, me as well, and I hope for you fans watching at home are loving it as well, because this is phenomenal racing action right here. Currently looking at Ian Brown and Brett Gardner. Brett Gardner, mind you, started in P9, so he's only gained 3 spots currently, but it does seem that Brett is a little bit off pace from previous races, so not to take anything away from Brett, but he's going to need to step it up if he wants to stay in that championship fight with Andrew Sharp.
Yeah, Andrew was not here last week at Long Beach, and so we'll have used that as his drop round. And as we mentioned, there's only 13 points between Gardner and Sharp. That's basically the difference between a win and, say, a top 5, top 6, considering the very close PRL points format. So we'll have to wait and see with those positions just how much ground Brett Gardner will have to make up in order to keep a stable championship lead going into the final round at VIR next week. So off to the 7th lap of the race for these drivers. Bedard has managed to get a nice gap and is still chasing down Graham Wildman for 3rd. Now Ian Brown and Brett Gardner might have to work together. Gardner having some trouble keeping it on the racetrack there at the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, Gardner just going a little bit wide. It didn't seem to slow him down too much. He's going to remain right on the rear bumper of Ian Brown through this corner. Vastly different lines that those two are running through that corner, by the way. Ian running a little bit wider exit and Brett keeping it a little bit more tighter. But just interesting, there are those opportunities in a couple of corners here at this track, which makes it a fun track. That's what provides all this excitement. But yeah, currently Brett just trying to inch his way towards Ian, gets a good run out of that last corner, and is going to have a nice opportunity to make a move going into the final corner here, but instead he's going to push his teammate, try to get them both closer.
Yeah, nice bump draft, nice working together for the Tech Sport Academy teammates, and Gardner will lift off coming into the final turn and continue that run down the start-finish straight. Meanwhile, it looks like Bedard is doing the same thing for Graham Wildman. He's trying his best to get as close as he can so they can have a run at Andrew Sharp and Matthew Wyckoff, who haven't done much in the battle for the lead. They're still very close, of course. It is a close race for the lead, but we're not seeing the slicing and dicing that we've seen from most of the GR86 class for the lead of the race. Sharp still holding strong versus Wyckoff in position number 1, but we'll see if the likes of Wildman and Bedard can catch up. Meanwhile, in MX5, it looks like there's been a problem there for Aaron Myers. He's fallen back into the clutches of Michael Chase, and Lincoln Fox is getting away in the lead.
Yeah, oh, and Aaron get a little bit loose there, and now Michael is going to get around him for the lead. Or, excuse me, that's P2, excuse me. Lincoln Fox is currently in the lead. But,
indeed.
Move Michael up to P2, a little bit of a hiccup from Aaron, but they keep it together.
Yes, indeed. Aaron had some really good pace there in the first part of the race, but I think just making a couple of mistakes, and he's not getting the corner exits that he'd ideally like at the moment. So we'll see if he can recover some pace and have another run at P2. For the moment, it looks like Lincoln Fox is uncatchable in the lead of the MX5s. The battle's still between Brett Gardner and Ian Brown, and now Keith Gwinnett has decided now it's time to get myself involved in this fight for P5. They're splitting up a little bit, and the front pack is now for Graham Wildman right up to the back of Matthew Wyckoff, and with those 4 cars giving each other draft assistance, they're going to try and break away as Wildman goes up the inside of Matthew Wyckoff at turn 1. It doesn't work, but Wyckoff is compromised and gets a little bump from Jean-Sebastien Bedard, and Bedard will move ahead of Wildman into turn 2.
Yeah, Graham just getting a little bit on that inside curb in turn 1. That allowed John Sebastian to get the run off the exit, and Wyckoff immediately had to go to defense mode because he saw that run coming and had to stay way right.
And indeed he did. Man, this is certainly tough. It's not a long race, but it's still a fair chunk of time, being 35 minutes in length total. We have 22 to go, and you got to be careful not to make a mistake early on, as long as you're staying in the fighters. Oh dear, I think that might have been Cummings there going off the circuit there in the background. Fortunately, plenty of runoff space here at Willow Springs for him to resume running, but he is truly out of the battle at the moment. And now Jean-Sebastien Bedard sees a chance to get into second versus Matthew Wyckoff. Wildman in trouble as well. He's under attack by the Tech Sport teammates plus Keith Gwinnett.
Yeah, mentioning Jake Cummings going wide there, I don't even think he tried to make the corner he was shooting for. But meanwhile, John Sebastian pushing Matthew Wyckoff into turn 1. He's going to get a good run. Look to the outside.
Whoa.
Very tight racing here for P2. Wyckoff is going to have a better entry. John Sebastian going to line up behind him, maybe go for an over-under here. It looks like he's going for it. Oh, they're going to make contact, and they're both going to go around.
Oh no, and that's what happens at the exit of turn 2. If you are not fully alongside and your rival is still trying to make the corner, Jean-Sebastien Bedard and Matthew Wyckoff will fall well out of the top 5 there. Now back in 6th and 7th, and Bedard is now back with his teammate Maxime David. It's been a disastrous race here for the No Team team. It's such a shame for Bedard. He had so much potential here, but at the exit of turn 2, he was just tracking out there, but trying to hold the line was Matthew Wyckoff, and just an unfortunate coming together. Not enough overlap for a justified move at that point, but I think Bedard just maybe getting a bit of understeer there at the exit.
Yeah, I'm gutted for Wyckoff there. Had an excellent qualifying, started P2, was showing that he deserved to be there. And then just to get run over like that from the driver behind, that's really got to infuriate you as a driver. Meanwhile, Keith Ginup, going for a move on Brett Gardner here. Gardner having to run a little bit wide there, a little tight racing.
Yeah, very tight indeed.
Hugging that white line through corner here.
Yep, got to be gentle through this section of the circuit coming into the twisties. There's not much room to make an error here with the curbs being as thin as they are. And Brett Gardner is now struggling to try and get some running here on Graham Wildman. There's a bump in the middle of that corner as well that really unsettles the car. But I think Gardner's in a good spot at the moment. He's currently sitting in 4th, and well, considering Andrew Sharp, he'll have if the race were to end now, he would have 56 points from this round. That's 55 for the win plus 1 point for pole, and you'd have to go back to about P6 there to make the championship equal coming into the final round. So Brett Gardner is 2 positions ahead of where he needs to be to still be equal with Andrew Sharp into the final round, and actually making up a further position up into 3rd, as it looks like Keith Gwinnett will managed to keep things going here just behind them coming into turn 2. Matthew Wyckoff has had some big trouble here trying his best to keep up with Jean-Sebastien Bedard behind, and it was a good points opportunity for him that is now gone. But Gwinnett trying up the inside of Brown there, who runs a little bit wide in the corner, and that's going to allow Gardner to skip away and try and catch up to Wildman. But can anyone catch Andrew Sharp? He's 1.5 seconds in front.
I think if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be either Graham or Brett. They've shown pace all season, similar to Andrew Sharp, but I mean they don't have a whole lot of time to catch them. It's only 2.5 seconds from Sharp to Gardner. I would have thought with Gardner starting further back in the field that the gap would have been larger, but Gardner has been able to manage the gap to Sharp very well so far in this race.
Yeah, he certainly has. He's taken advantage of the slipstream. He's kept it clean, and he's taken advantage of problems for others, much like Bedard, David, and Wyckoff. That's 3 free positions effectively for Brett Gardner from that. He was not involved in those incidents. So Let's see, coming into turn 2 again, what Keith Gwinnett can do to try and find his way past Ian Brown. Keith has had a good race, up 2 positions so far, and could be looking at a top 4 if everything falls his way. Ian Brown a little bit wide on the exit of 2, but that's the conventional racing line. Now Gwinnett sticks it up the inside, coming into 3, but he's not going to get it done. Not far up enough to make the move. The braking distances are so short in the GR86 and MX5 that you have to be absolutely on point if you want to make a pass under brakes.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the battle for P2 in the MX5s is on as, oh Lord, there's a car spun around in front of him. That is, Jake Cummings that has spun around, having an atrocious race thus far. But Aaron Myers all over the back bumper of Michael Chase. Was side by side with him a few corners ago, but now the gap is starting to open back up through this sector of the track. But that draft in these MX5s, Aaron's going to be right back up on him here shortly.
There certainly is. See what kind of recovery Myers can make in that second place battle in MX5 as Maxime David will move ahead of Matthew Wyckoff there in the background. And this is what happened to Cummings. He just took too much of that curb. That's exactly what you were talking about before, Mark. Our MX5 leader having to take avoiding action there as he just took a bit too much of that curb and it sent him unstable.
Yeah, it's very easy to do on these small little curbs as Wyckoff immediately cuts off the inside from Maxime David there, making sure he does not have an opportunity to shoot up the inside. Meanwhile, he's going to go a little bit wide going to the exit of this corner. That's going to allow Maxime to inch up closer and look at a move to the outside of the next corner here. This little tight hairpin-like corner-ish is Wyckoff. Oh, he's gonna lose it.
Oh, tank slapper for Matthew Wyckoff. And around he goes. Oh, that's such a shame. Wyckoff could have been looking at a top 3 in this race, but that is nowhere near going to come to fruition now. He'll try his best to get back going, but he'll have to settle for 8th at best, and I think he's having trouble getting going there as now, yeah, he's towed. Yeah, just losing the rear on the exit there. Tries to correct it, but overcorrects, and around he goes. That's such a shame there for Matthew. He was on for a great result, but it will come to naught as Aaron Myers will have a go at second place in MX5 here with Michael Chase defending the inside of the final corner. This last turn is pretty much flat out in the MX5s to my knowledge, or at the very least an ever so slight lift, but evidently looks like Chase is able to keep up the momentum through the corner, so it's up to Myers now to try and find a way past in the twisties or get close enough for a slipstream run into turn 1.
Meanwhile, the battle for the lead in the GR86s is on. Graham has run down Andrew Sharp and is all over the back bumper, harassing Andrew. Meanwhile, Brett has not made any headway into this fight. He is still 2.5 seconds behind Andrew Sharp. But Graham all over the back of Andrew currently as they come down the back, I'm going to call it the back stretch of this track. So he's going to use up that draft. Did not have a great middle section, so Andrew was able to pull away ever so slightly, but that draft will pull Graham right back into it by the time they get to turn 1.
And Keith Gwinnett gets into P4 with a great run through the twisties on Ian Brown. Was able to draw alongside and complete the move into the penultimate turn. So now we'll see if Ian Brown can try and hold on to this potential top 4 that he is looking at here. Was sitting in 4th for quite some time, and he'll try his best here, but it's difficult, I have to say, trying to keep the car on the racetrack at the exits of these fast corners, because Willow Springs, with the sheer amount of nothing next to the racetrack, it's difficult to pick your turn in and acceleration points.
It really is, and you can see it from all these different angles that we are bringing to you here at RaceSpotTV. Just almost every exit, these cars are dipping tires off of the track because they are pushing so hard and the corners are so fast that it's exceptionally difficult to judge if you're going to make the corner by keeping all 4 tires on the track. It's incredibly difficult. It's not as easy as it looks. I found out the hard way, so it's just so inviting to stay planted with your gas pedal all the way up against the floor, coming off these exits, and it's extremely easy just to dip a tire off, and unfortunately it could really end your race, as Graham is closing in on Andrew again for a potential look into turn 1, using up that draft right now.
Just staying behind coming into the turn-in point, but he is so close to going for the lead here with 11 minutes left in the race. Such intensity we've seen in the GR86 battle, and the entirety of the top 5 has been on. You know, the results here could look entirely different by the end of the race in that top 5, considering how things have been going.
And with Graham harassing Andrew, that's just allowed Andrew and Graham to drive faster and further away from Brett Gardner in third. The gap is now 3 seconds between first and third.
Yeah, that's looking almost insurmountable at this point, unless there's a bit of side-by-side running between Wildman and Sharp and they cost each other time. I think Gardner's going to have to settle for third, but that will still be enough to keep him in the championship lead. In the bottom right, still seeing Aaron Myers trying to Michael Chase for the second spot in MX5, but doesn't seem to be much movement in that battle at the moment. We haven't seen a big move from Myers just yet. I think he's just struggling to try and keep it consistent like the Itasca Point drivers have been able to do throughout the whole season. And off the circuit there goes Keith Gwinnett at the end of the final corner, and that might allow Ian Brown alongside into the opening corner. He is ahead when they come into the braking zone, as short as it is. But looks like Brown's going to get it done here, and this will be an extra opportunity for him to assist Brett Gardner in trying to catch up to Andrew Sharp and Graham Wildman. It's interesting to note, considering how far ahead Sharp and Wildman are, Gardner and Brown actually equal on pace. Oh dear, all right. He
gathers it back up, but he's still to the inside of Gwinnett. And Gwinnett's going to go for the crossover, but gets a little bit of a wiggle there. Not going to be able to complete it.
Yeah, tiny bit of a wiggle there for Keith Gwinnett, and well, that's going to give Brett Gardner a bit of breathing room, but I don't think he'd want it at this stage. He wants Ian Brown right behind him, pushing him forward to try and get up to Sharp and Wildman. I was just thinking about lap times for a second there. The last lap for Andrew Sharp was 127.8, and these guys fighting for third have not been able to get close to that. Everyone else is setting laps in the low 128 second bracket. The only drivers that are matching Andrew Sharp's pace right now are Jean-Sebastien Bedard and Maxime David, the no-team cars in P6 and 7, and they are still a long way behind. But give it another 8.5 minutes, and it looks like they might just be able to get onto the back of this P3 battle. Keith Gwinnett again trying up the inside of Ian Brown to get past him. Gwinnett will give him room to the inside. I almost thought for a second there Gwinnett was going to go straight into Brown catching the curb like that, but they stay out of it.
I thought the same thing. As soon as he hit that curb, I saw the left side tires come up into the air and that car dart to the right ever so slightly, but he's going to go for the over-under here. Going to make the move on the outside coming into this next left-hander, but he's going to brake early, get on the gas earlier, cut the cornering a little bit there. So he's not going to lose too much time. In fact, he's going to get a great exit out of that corner coming downhill here and get right back on the back bumper of Ian.
Oh, he'll try a little bit wide in the corner there, but there's a bit of extra camber, it seems, around the outside that'll allow you to maintain the pace. And I think with the final sector of this track being how it is, you want to be a fair way behind coming out of that corner. That means you can get the full advantage of the slipstream. So, battle for the lead. Once again, checking back in with Andrew Sharp and Graham Wildman. And Graham, it looks like, might be having a move into turn one this time around. But we have to consider the high speeds, the slipstreaming. This is almost NASCAR level stuff that we're seeing from these guys. If you're racing on a super speedway like Daytona or Talladega, you don't want to be battling if you're that far in the lead. You want to be staying in the slipstream. You want to be helping the leader to get you both the gap that you need to fight amongst yourselves on the last lap. It's all about losing as little time as possible, and anytime you're side by side through these corners, you're costing yourself a few tenths at a time.
Exactly right. And during the side-by-side there, we saw Keith Gwinnett move up into P4, and he was looking at a move on Brett for third there, but Brett was able to cover it off, and Ian is now all over the back of Keith coming into the downhill section.
Yep, just backing off a little bit in the twisties is Graham Wildman there, and we'll see if Gardner, Gwinnett and Brown will be able to catch up to these guys with only 6 minutes to go. A little bit of lap traffic for Andrew Sharp coming up here. Jake Cummings, who is still soldiering on out there after the horrific race that he's had. 2 visits to pit lane to get the car repaired. It looks like Sharp's enjoying himself out there.
Yeah, I would be too if I was currently holding to P1. But you see the force feedback in his wheel kind of jerking him around. That's how bumpy this track is. And, you know, you feel it in the steering wheels of these high-performance steering systems.
Oh, Keith Gwinnett alongside Brett Gardner. He's having a run at P3. This has been a great comeback from Keith. Now they have to keep an eye out for Patrick Cowgill, who's running 4th in MX5 at the moment.
And staying very high out of the way. Very good sportsmanship from Patrick. Doesn't want to change the outcome of this fight.
Yeah, indeed. Give them plenty of space. And now another move for Ian Brown, potentially. Just trying to squeeze Keith Gwinnett tight, but not going to happen there. Keith's going to get a great run here. And once again, pressure Brett Gardner for P3. This has been a great comeback for the number 33.
Oh, Brett Gardner going a little bit off track there in that little kink. Caused his car to slide a little bit more than I think he would have liked. Now Keith is going to be coming ever so closer to the back bumper of Brett Gardner. I don't know if he's going to make a move here or not, but it looks like he is. He's going to go to the outside.
Maybe try an over-under.
Yeah, I think the best bet would be to back out and use the draft out of this last corner.
Yeah, that'd be the way to go. Oh, Gardner's a bit wide there on entry. Gwinnett's going to catch him up. Yep, here we go, side by side again, but now Keith Gwinnett has lost the advantage of the slipstream. He's punching his own hole through the air as Graham Wildman has gone to the lead of the race. He's passed Andrew Sharp into turn 1.
Oh man, this is such a good fight. We missed the fight for the lead, but Andrew's fighting back. He's coming back at him.
Well, this puts Andrew in a good position, and look at the smile on his face. He knows what the deal is. He can slipstream back past Graham Wildman in the last couple of laps and take the lead back. He just needs to play to his strengths here on this circuit and stay in touch with the orange number 53. This has been a fantastic fight all the way through the GR86 top 5.
Yeah, Andrew, you can tell is having a lot of fun fighting here for the win with Graham. And I think he knows that Graham might be a little bit quicker than him with how big that smile was. But nonetheless, he's going to continue to fight. And it looks like they're coming up on the final corner now. Andrew using that draft just like Graham has been. And Reese, they can afford to do this. They built up a 5.5 second gap over third.
Yeah. Very good point. I mentioned that it's much like super speedway racing. You don't want to cost each other time when the field is close, but once you're out in the lead, you are free to fight amongst yourselves. 2 laps to go at the front of this field, and Andrew Sharp, I think, is just hanging back, setting up the slipstream for a potential move on the final lap on Graham Wildman. Now Brett Gardner's under threat for third again. He'll stay on the track this time and keep it nice and stable into turn 2 as Keith Gwinnett will have to find another way past.
Yeah, Keith having a spectacular run here at Brett Gardner, and Brett having a spectacular defense against Keith. This is great great tight racing action. Exactly what you'd expect from the Precision Racing League. Keith,
and have a look at the MX5. Looks like Lincoln Fox has completely lost the advantage that he had earlier. Michael Chase and Aaron Myers have caught him right up, so we've got our MX5 top 3 still to decide.
Reese, how many times have we noticed that in the last couple of races? Lincoln would have a nice big lead, and then all of a sudden it would be gone by the end of the race.
Yeah, we've seen that for Pat Labrosse as well. Very interesting stuff. Well, we've got plenty to still decide here today, as with a minute and 20 left on the clock, they're going to cross the line at the front of GR86 and start the final lap. Andrew Sharp in the slipstream of Graham Wildman. Graham breaking the draft coming into turn 1. He's going to go defensive into the first turn here. And will Andrew be able to make it round the outside of 1 here? He's put in a lot of speed into the turn, but he manages to get the best exit possible and get back into the lead. But how hard will Graham fight him back? Jean-Sebastien Bedard, meanwhile, as falling back here versus Maxime David. There's a trade there for 6th place between the teammates. Say that 10 times fast. But Andrew Sharp looks like he's just maximizing his exits at the moment here, as Lincoln Fox and Michael Chase have traded places for the MX5 lead coming into their final lap. The Itasca Point teammates are side by side, and this is the best situation possible for Aaron Myers. He can take advantage and cut under them if he plays his cards right.
Yeah, side by side, still trying to decide who is going to lead this race for the MX5s. And Aaron Myers just soaking it in, waiting for them to make a mistake so he can pounce. It looks like right now is Michael Chase is going to fall behind P2. Now Aaron Myers is going to come up beside him because Michael Chase runs wide.
He does
P2
indeed.
Aaron Myers.
Good stuff as the checkered flag flies for GR86, and Andrew Sharp will win the GR86 class there with Graham Wildman in second. Brilliant stuff from Andrew Sharp, and fantastic stuff from Graham Wildman as well. What a way to finish. Oh, parts flying everywhere. We're still trying to decide the top 3 for MX5, though. Lincoln Fox has gotten back away in the lead here, and it looks like he's going to come across the line to win. But what's going to happen between Aaron Myers and Michael Chase here? Michael going off the circuit there. That's some crucial momentum he's lost at the very last moment, and I don't think he's going to have enough pace to get back past into second. The top 3 in MX5 will be crossing the line within just a couple of tenths of each other. Fantastic race at the end.
Fantastic racing all race long, and super intense racing in that GR86 field as Josiah Douglas comes across the line in P8. He will be our last car on the lead lap to finish.
And that will end the field there. It looks like Matthew Wyckoff just crossing the line himself off the circuit, in fact. A big slide coming out of the final corner. Andrew Sharp then wins at Willow Springs with Graham Wildman, Keith Gwinnett, and Ian Brown and Jean-Sebastien Bedard rounding out the top 5. Something happened to Brett Gardner there. He's fallen all the way back to 8th, and I get the feeling that's going to be enough to give Andrew Sharp the championship lead coming into the final round, with Cummings and Wyckoff rounding out the 10 GR86s that started this race. In MX5, it was close between Lincoln Fox, Aaron Myers, and Michael Chase right at the very end. Patrick Cowgill finishing a long way off, 1 lap down, but still good to see Patrick out there cutting laps. Okay, so we missed what happened to Brett Gardner on that last lap. Yeah, incident limit potentially for Brett Gardner.
Because you saw on the timing there, he finished 5 seconds behind. Here's a replay.
Yeah, it's a spin apparently, just catching the curb, and he was too deep. He was too deep into turn 3, and he tried his best to hold on, but spinning off the circuit. It all came undone for Gardner at the very end.
An uncharacteristic mistake solo mistake at that from Brett Gardner is going to cost him dearly. That's going to be huge consequences in the championship points fight.
Yeah, finishing that low down, he is likely going to lose the championship lead to Andrew Sharp coming into the last round at Virginia International Raceway. Oh, good Lord. This is going to be an intense end to the championship, but we should talk to our race result best place getters, if I can get my words out. Andrew Sharp joins us now, winning the GR86 class. Congratulations, Andrew. That was a very intense battle with Graham.
Yeah, he was being real nice to me, not doing anything too silly, and then we decided to put on a bit of a show, I think, and so it was good fun there right to the end.
Yeah, it was good that you guys were able to build the gap that you did, because Willow Springs being so slipstream dependent, you couldn't afford to fight too hard when the field was that close.
Yeah, it was a bit heavier on the slipstream than I was expecting. So I think just pulling as much of a gap I could at the start was going to be critical. So I was glad to be able to work with Wyckoff there and then Wildman at the end. So luck was on my side.
Yeah, it certainly was, especially considering Brett Gardner had a spin on the final lap and then exceeded the incident limit, so he's classified down in 8th. That should give you the championship lead coming into the final round at VIR, so the pressure's on.
Yeah, that's something I haven't thought about yet, so that's crazy. I mean, Brett's been strong all season, so that's really unfortunate. I know VIR is going to be a ton of fun. It's my favorite track on the service, so hopefully it'll be a good conclusion, especially because these cars are leaving PRL, so this is it for a while.
Yeah, indeed. Last season for the GR86 and MX5, as well as Super Formula later on. Well, congratulations once again, Andrew, and hopefully we'll get a chance to chat to you next week. We'll see if you're in the top spot or not.
Yeah, we'll see. Thanks for the broadcast, guys. Have a good rest of your night.
Number 24, Andrew Sharp, with a great result there. And we will then be joined by the number 53 of Graham Wildman, who has stood by with Mark Kalin, a fantastic second place.
And got Graham here in the booth now. And Graham, congratulations on second place. And heck of a show that you and Andrew put on there. Was it? I'm sure it was, but was it fun in the car?
Definitely. This is my first time on this track, so it was definitely a learning experience out there today. Had the pace for it, had a good battles all up and down the field, it seemed like all day long. I was able to catch back up to Andrew, and yeah, just last 2 laps there, I went for it and unfortunately couldn't hang on.
Yeah, it was very tight there at the end. Really enjoyed watching you and Andrew battle it out there the last several laps, and the rest of the field as well. But yeah, next week, Graham, it's all down to one race, VIR. Do you have any thoughts moving forward for next week?
VIR is a fantastic track, not quite the best for passing, and it'll be interesting to see how it is with these draft-heavy cars. I'll try to put in some more hours this week since our GTP season's done and dusted. So see if I can pull out another good result there, maybe eke out a win if I'm lucky enough.
Yeah, always noticeable when you're passing by me on Monday nights in the hypersonic speeds of the GTP car versus my Corvette. But, but no, you put on a fantastic show tonight, and really looking forward to next week, and hopefully we get to talk to you again next week as well. Before we let you go, though, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Gotta give a shout out to my mom in the chat. You know, she wanted to see what this racing stuff is all about this season, so send her the link, and I hope she's enjoying it. So, hi, Mom.
Yes, we hope she's enjoying it as well, and if she's anything like us, I know she is. So shout out to Mama Wildman, and congrats again on P2. And Graham, we'll talk to you hopefully next week.
Hope so, fellas. Have a good one.
You as well.
Well, Graham Wildman there with a fantastic second place finish there. And it looks like we do have another driver waiting for an interview, but we're not quite sure who they are. So let's see. Let's cast our voices out into the void and confirm the identity of this driver.
Do you have a copy there, driver?
It appears we do not. All right. Well, that's going to end our interviews and our coverage of the GR86 and MX5 challenge. We, of course, go to Virginia International Raceway next week, Mark. What a brilliant circuit this is, and it's going to provide a tight and spectacular championship finale.
It really is. I actually just did a GR86 official race here at VIR earlier this week, trying to gain some safety rating so I can finally get my A-class rating. It didn't go well. It's a super fun track, but it is also just like Willow Springs with elevation changes, with curbs that can end your race, and grass on both sides with very little runoff into the walls. So it's going to be very exciting, and with a very tight points battle for this GR86 race, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, who will come out on top? Will it be Brett Gardner or Andrew Sharp? Mark that in your calendar and tune back in to see who gets the title. But now it's time to move to Super Formula, the second last round of what is going to be the final season of PRL Super Formula. It's a shame this series is coming to an end, Mark. I've really enjoyed commentating Super Formula racing with you for the last 2 seasons. But let's try and send this series off with an excellent last couple of rounds. We are turning into home ground for these cars here at Mobility Resort Motegi, which is still Twin Ring Motegi as far as I'm concerned. We go to Zandvoort next week for the final round of the season. And I think passing is going to be a little more difficult at Zandvoort than it will be here. A very nice circuit, Twin Ring Motegi, to have some long straights coming into tight hairpins and heavy braking zones all around, a technical circuit that rewards precision. But the entire schedule here has been fantastic. Really loved the calendar here today. As we go into the championship standings, it's rather close between J.R. Williams and Pablo Valenzuela Uribe. Only 8 points in it for the championship lead. Williams did not have the best of results at Mugello last round, despite his great qualifying, and so he's fallen under pressure from Valenzuela, who has the most wins of anyone this season at 3. But J.R. Williams has more top 5 finishes, so the picture of consistency up at the top there. As we go further down the standings, the pro standings don't seem to have much else going on coming into this final round. Though if Manuel Vargas is in the session, then he could stand a chance to gain some more points on Carson Keane, as long as he has it all wrapped up. So that's pro. And going into AM, well, this is the more populous class, and it shows there is 1 point in it for the championship lead between Frankie Brzezowski and Christian Jasper. Blake Ziti only another 5 points back from Jasper there. Plus, Brett Punkari and Neil Alexander equal on points, with Hugo Galaz and Jeff Groff chasing them down. It's going to be a very entertaining fight to see who comes out on top here. And considering you can't drop the result of the final round, Mark, oh boy, I think we're going to be seeing some big drama in the AM class.
Oh, absolutely. As you can see from this leaderboard currently, from 4th on down to 8th, any of those names can change in those positions over the course of tonight and next week. Any of those spots are up for grabs, and it's going to be very fun to call out these battles on track as it happens as well.
Yeah, certainly is. Well, in the team standings, SRTE is solidly on top. We have J.R. Williams in the pro class, and we also have the likes of Blake Ziti in the AM class, helping to get that points total up to 553, almost unbeatable compared to Final Lap Sim Racing team consisting of Pablo Valenzuela Uribe and Manuel Vargas. And Uribe has been the one with the more consistent results over the course of the season. 2 DNFs in a row for Manuel Vargas means that they're having trouble trying to keep up with SRTE at the top of the standings. Go Squadra with some fantastic results in the previous few rounds. We've had Jeff Groff taking an overall win all the way back at Sebring, and last round at Mugello, it was Christian Jasper who came out on top in the AM class. So taking up that nice points total there. But everywhere else, there's not much to talk about when it comes to close battles. Basically, everyone outside of the top 3 is pretty much decided at this point in the season. So we can move to the action here. On board with Brett Thurman in qualifying for a lap around Twin Ring Motegi. Brake as late as you dare into the first 2 turns. Double apex, 2 right-handers to start off the lap, and it is over just like that. But then, Mark, we come to turn 3, which is going to be one of the prime overtaking opportunities on the lap.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of prime opportunities to overtake on this circuit. As you said earlier, a lot of high braking zones from high speed straights. So it's going to be very interesting to see where these drivers choose to use their push to pass, where they choose to make their moves, and it's going to be a really fun strategy to watch, because I feel like the push to pass is going to be a little bit more prevalent tonight than it has been in the last couple of races, just because of the extra long straightaways that we have here at Motegi than we do at previous tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. The lap, of course, is defined by those hairpins and heavy braking zones, but you saw Brett Thurman going through the middle sector there. A technical high-speed sequence of S-bends in the middle of the lap, and that's going to be one of the places where I think we see a lot of drama, because the drivers will be wanting to push through there. These are, of course, high-level open-wheelers, so they have wings and slicks, and the faster you go through corners, the more downforce you have at your disposal. And that final chicane is going to be a point of contention as well. It's so difficult to line up the turn-in point, and the exit is ridiculously important.
Yeah, and Reese, my personal experience with this track is that it's a very difficult track to get the line just right. Granted, the last time I ran here was in a GT3 car in a PRL season race, probably 2 or 3 seasons ago, but it's not an easy track. It looks easy from a track map, but once you get out there and drive it, it's not easy at all.
No, absolutely not. It's one of those circuits that, you know, you see a map of, or you see it on a broadcast and you think, oh, that's easy. It looks super simple, just a simple technical circuit. But once you get behind the wheel, no, you find yourself losing time in weird spots, and you think, how on earth can I gain that time back? That's probably what JR Williams is thinking as he tries to chase down Pablo Valenzuela Uribe for the pole position overall and in the pro class. 1 minute 30.4 to beat for JR Williams, and it's going to be a 1:31.0 on that lap for him. So still 0.4 of a second off what he could manage on his best lap. Currently Brett Thurman is in pole position in the AM class, and Frankie Brzezowski here in the AM class championship lead, looking to try and get a better lap on board. He's got a 10th to make up to overcome Manuel Vargas for 6th overall, but he's going to have to make up something closer to 3 or 4/10 of a second to get into the AM top 2. Jeff Groff and Blake Ziti only separated by 1,000th of a second for AM P2 and 4th overall.
Yeah, and Frankie hasn't been one of our flashier drivers throughout this season, but has been one of the most consistent, which is why he is in the championship lead for the AM class. He hasn't always been there fighting for wins, but the guys that have been up there, they've just been either getting caught up in their own mistakes or getting caught up in others' mistakes, and for whatever reason, Frankie's just been there to collect the pieces, and that's what you got to do. In order to finish, you first must finish, or something along those lines.
Yes. Get fooled, you can't get fooled again. So JR Williams will find his way to the final couple of corners, and we'll see if this is enough for him to try and get an improvement, but it won't be. 1 minute 30.9 now, 0.3 off his fastest. Pablo is not out on circuit at the moment. It looks like he's comfortable enough with his current time. He's decided, I don't have to take any further part in this session. I won't be able to go much faster than that 1:30.48 that I've set at the conclusion of this qualifying. So let's see what JR Williams can do on this lap. Into turn 5 and then getting into the sweeping, flowing section here. Flat out through this right-hander and then just a tap of the brakes down into 4th gear. Try and use the curbs as much as you can and get the line right coming into this next hard braking zone. A bad run through those corners can spell doom for your position with a move up the inside into the left.
Yes, it is very enticing for drivers to want to send it into these hard braking zones. So you don't want to get your corner exits wrong coming out of those tight hairpins because that'll just invite them all the more. Meanwhile, JR Williams coming down into the last sequence of corners here, going to go through the tunnel, and through the quick chicane here onto the start-finish straight. What is his time going to beat? The time to beat a 30.4.
Still not close enough.
Yeah, 31 flat again. That's 2 laps in a row for JR to do a 31 flat. So time to gain. I know he is capable of doing so. He is very equal on pace with Pablo. But meanwhile, we are going to ride on board with Manuel Vargas as he goes through the S section of the track. And real quick, Reese, you mentioned Manuel and Carson Keene being really close on points. Well, Carson's not here to defend his position. So all Manuel has to do is finish, and he could surpass Carson in the points going into next week.
Yeah, he certainly could. Carson has already used up his drop round with a DNF at round 1 and not starting round 5. So it looks like Manuel Vargas will be able to get enough points here to overcome that, but he needs to finish well enough. There's 31 points that he'll have to make up, and looking at the points format, 31 points is basically a 20th place finish. So looks to me like Manuel Vargas is going to be able to get that as long as he finishes the race. There's only 15 cars in the session at the moment, and it looks like the number 13 of JR Williams pulls over, and that's the end of his session as the checkered flag flies in qualifying. Will there be any further improvements from drivers? Hugo Galaz putting a time on the board finally in the final moments there, enough for lucky 13th as we check out the 7-11 of Barry Cochrane. Consistent competitor in this series. He's usually more towards the back, but he always turns up and has a go and sets a 133.6. That's a good improvement. Won't grant him any positions, but at the very least a little bit closer to his ultimate pace here today. So with that, the track falls silent, and we will find ourselves almost getting to the grid of this race. Man, it's going to be tough, but JR Williams is on the front row alongside Pablo Valenzuela Uribe, who takes pole position. Brett Thurman will take the AM-class pole alongside Blake Ziti. Then we have Jeff Groff and Manuel Vargas rounding out the overall top 6. Victor Couto and Frankie Brzezowski 7th and 8th. The 5th row of the grid, Gabriel Hopper and Christian Jasper. Cristobal Valenzuela and Andrew Ellis rounding out the top 12. And then we have Galaz, Pancari and Cochrane rounding out our field. So again, a smaller field than we usually see in Super Formula, but the racing should still be mighty fine.
Oh, absolutely. We have seen this previously with the smaller fields, that the fighting is just as intense, if not more. So don't worry, folks. We will find the action for you out there on the track. And once again, Pablo on pole position, proving he is the man to beat, like he has done so the last several races, where the last 2 races he has gone start to finish from position number 1. So JR is going to have to do something if he wants to maintain that position, or that position on top of the championship lead.
Yeah, he'll either have to do that or hope for a mistake from Pablo, and it's easy to make mistakes around this circuit on the first lap. Cold tires, cold brakes coming into turns 1 and 2, and the run out of turn 5 being very difficult as well. Basically, turns 3 and 4, my apologies. Turns 3 and 4 are basically the reverse of turns 1 and 2, though a little bit slower on entry, and it's very easy to clip the gravel on the exit of those corners and get yourself spun around. So as cars form their way onto the grid now, find out who gets the best standing start and who will start using their overtake button the earliest. Remember, if you're unfamiliar with Super Formula, these cars do have a push to pass system. It's a little bit different from what you see in IndyCar. In Super Formula, you get 200 seconds worth of extra power to use over the course of the race. You can use as much of it as you want at a time, but once you let go of that button, you have to wait a full 2 minutes before you can use it again, and the lights on the air boxes above the drivers will be the indicator of whether or not they're using it. If it's green, they've got more than 20 seconds worth remaining. If it's blinking fast, then they're using it. If it's blinking slow, then it's recharging. Once it turns red, they have less than 20 seconds worth of extra power remaining. So we'll see if anyone runs out around the long straights here at Motegi.
Yeah, and currently 2 cars left to grid, Hugo Galaz and Cristobal Valenzuela. Still yet to show up on the track. You were mentioning hopefully everyone gets a good start. If I do recall correctly, that orange car in P3, Brett Thurman, last week did not get a good start, and I believe he lost 7 spots on the opening sequence of corners.
Yeah, he did. Well, we'll find out if that works out well for him again as the revs rise and we wait for the start here. Green flag flies and away we go. Look at the jump from JR Williams. He's going to immediately go into the lead into turn 1. And Brett Thurman gets a good start this time. Blake Ziti will try and fight with Jeff Groff for MP3 as they make their way cleanly through the first 2 turns here. For the penultimate round of PRL Super Formula. Big dive under brakes for Victor Couto and Christian Jasper. They're fighting so hard there over 6th, 7th and 8th place as well, with Manuel Vargas right in the middle of that fight. It looks like Vargas having to compromise and lose a position to Gabriel Hopper, potentially to Andrew Ellis as well. But the best start to the race possible for JR Williams.
Yeah, JR quickly out to the lead of this race. Exactly what the doctor ordered for JR. Pablo, on the other hand, did not want to see that happen because he has had the race all to himself the last 2 weeks and was hoping for more of the same. However, this week he is actually going to have to fight for the win of this race with the JR Williams.
Yeah, indeed. If he wants to preserve the championship lead, and this isn't taking into account the extra points for pole position and fastest lap, Pablo would have to finish 4th or better to keep that championship lead. If Williams gets the fastest lap with an extra point, then he'd still be safe. But I think there's an extra point in hand already for Pablo Valenzuela with pole position. He'll have to get his race on here and try and fight back on consistency, because he has lost a lot of ground to Williams here at the end of the first lap.
Yeah, Pablo not having to push hard or be pressured for position the last couple of races. As we have a car running wide, that is Gabriel Hopp, and a car spinning just ahead.
Oh,
that's
Couto.
Victor Couto. Hello,
Victor
Kitty.
Couto off the circuit. Yep.
Hello, Gravel.
Yeah, goodbye, Kitty, as Couto will get himself going again. No damage to the car, but a lot of time loss. And, of course, there's no full course yellows in these series, so he's going to have to fight his way back on pace alone. No pit stops either. Super Formula cars cannot refuel, and the tyres will last the full race distance, so Couto will have a little bit less in the tyres after that spin. Looked like he just got on the power a bit too aggressively, and the rear let go of him into turn 4.
Yeah, and rears got caught up in that kitty litter, if you may. Okay, I'm done.
There we go. I was waiting for that. Well, the fight is going to continue here for P7. Manuel Vargas holding on. He's only down one position. He's managed to fight his way back nicely, but Ellis and Hopper and everyone else behind them is putting the pressure on here at the conclusion of lap 2. It does seem to be a bit closer between Ellis and Hopper right now, as now we see the first real lap times come in from these guys. Pablo Valenzuela Uribe is the fastest car on track right now. He took nearly 6/10 of a second out of JR Williams there for the lead of the race. Blake Ziti and Jeff Groff fighting over AM Class P2. The nailing of the start there for Brett Thurman has allowed him to keep a gap here, and he'll be hoping that this battle between Ziti and Groff continues further.
Yeah, Groff right all over the gearbox of Blake Ziti, which is beautiful news for Brett Thurman, who has hung on to P3 so far for this race. Great start to the race for Brett. Again, I'm not sure if it was him or not last week that had the horrible start, losing 7 spots, but regardless, a great start for Brett Thurman this week. And we have a nice little fight shaping up for the AM win this evening in the Super Formulas.
Yeah, we definitely do. Keep an eye here on Andrew Ellis. He's got Frankie Brzezowski behind him. Frankie losing 2 spots there, and he's going to gain one of them back as Ellis spins up the tires on the exit of the hairpin. We'll have to give up the position to Cristobal Valenzuela as well. And he'll try and get some rhythm back over the next couple of laps. We're already nearly 5 minutes down in this race here. It is a hard slog, 45 minutes total or 30 laps, whichever comes first. We should be able to get the full race distance sorted here. So Pablo chasing down JR, took another 3/10 out of him on the last lap. You can see now, despite the poor getaway from the line, Pablo has the edge when it comes to pace.
Yeah, he is definitely quicker than JR. And interesting, I was looking at my data here, and Pablo has not used any push-a-pass to run him down either.
Yeah, that's interesting. Pablo trying his best here to reserve that overtake for potentially after he makes the move and can build a gap, because we've seen how quickly things can go wrong in a Super Formula race. If you have that time in hand, it'll definitely work to your advantage. And don't forget, JR and Pablo have come together at Sebring before, on the final lap, no less. They're obviously familiar with each other, they respect each other, and the racing between them has been respectful, but sometimes there's just been tiny little errors that have ballooned into huge incidents between these drivers, and that's a major reason why this championship battle is so close. Into the final couple of corners then, can Pablo get the exit he needs? Has to wait a couple of moments to get on the power. JR gets a better run out of the final corner, and still we don't see Pablo using any of his overtake.
No, relying on his abilities at the moment as they get through turns 1 and 2, coming down to turns 3 and 4. Pablo just gonna stay in line here currently and just bide his time at the moment and wait for the right opportunity to make his move.
Yeah, it doesn't look like JR's used much, if any, of his extra power either. So these two just waiting for the opportunity to really defend or really attack in further towards the midpoint of the race. But this is the point of the circuit here through these fast corners where you start to see a little bit of aero wash. You could see that right there for Pablo. Stuck up behind JR through the fast turns. More dirty air, less air flowing over the wings, and that's less grip ultimately available to him in the fastest corners of this circuit. But it's under brakes, under acceleration, keeping up mid-corner speed and absolutely nailing the exits that's allowing him to keep this gap up.
Yeah, and that's a lot of factors that you have to get right each and every corner, each and every lap. So it's very high stress, very high demand, and it is not easy to do. But these guys up here at the front, Pablo and JR respectively, they make it look simple.
They do indeed, and Andrew Ellis there getting past Brett Pancari to get into 11th place. That was far from simple. You have a lot of things that you need to keep track of here, as well as trying to get the power down out of these slower corners. These cars, of course, with a turbo 4-cylinder engine producing in excess of 600 horsepower, so there's a lot of power going through those rear wheels and a lot of force going through the Thrustmaster T818 that Brett Pancari is using. Look at how much it's shaking into those braking zones. It's ridiculous. How are his wrists still holding together?
Yeah, he's definitely got a high force feedback rating on that wheelbase that he is using. And, you know, we saw this last week with Brett Pancari as well, where he was lighting up the rears quite often coming out of the corners. So he'll need to keep an eye on that if he wants to keep the tire temps down.
Yeah, preserving the rear tires is very important at Motegi because there's so many slow corners that come onto long straights. So if you can preserve the rear tire grip, keep them nice and cool, and you'll be able to get the best runs out of corners. Otherwise, your pace is just going to drop off. For now, Pancari, though he does seem to have the advantage on Ellis in some places, not able to get close enough to get that position back. He's still up 2 places from where he started, though, which is good to see.
Any improvements, Reese, is always a good thing.
Yeah, any improvement at all. It's all about getting consistent points. As oh lordy, Blake Ziti has just taken the fastest lap. The first 1 minute 31 of the night we see there from Ziti. I think he's been using some of his overtake to try and chase down Brett Thurman for the AM class lead and overall third. You can see that the gap is closer there behind Williams and Uribe as Pablo is getting ever closer to JR.
Yeah, Pablo getting closer and closer to the rear gearbox of JR Williams. They're going to go into the quick left-hander here and into the right. Pablo with a little bit of a later apex, later entry in with a shallow exit out. That allowed him to get a little bit better run than JR through that section. Coming into this final sector here with the final hairpin of the lap, I believe. Yes. JR just right there on the back of JR, or excuse me, Pablo on the back of JR. Coming down to the tunnel section, leading onto the start-finish straight. Not looking to make any moves right now. I think Pablo is just biding his time right now. I think he's just trying to play mind games with JR, possibly, maybe force him into an error. I don't know. I don't see him forcing any issues right now, so I think he's just trying to take it easy.
Yeah, JR solidly in the lead under a lot of pressure from Pablo Valenzuela Uribe, but can he beat himself is the question. JR trying his best here to keep up this gap, and we still haven't seen any extra power usage from either of our top 2. JR, the fastest car on track that time by. I think Pablo is just waiting for the opportunity. He knows that he has the pace advantage. Remember, he took pole position by a solid 0.2 of a second, so he's got a lot of pace available in that car. So yeah, I think just a case of pressuring into a mistake, maybe waiting until the last few laps to try and really get on the attack, saving up all of that push-to-pass usage for the final half of the race.
Well, what also gives the advantage to Pablo in these situations is, as JR mentioned in his interview last week, he just has not had the time as he normally had to put practice in. So hopefully that case has changed for this week, but yeah, definitely a disadvantage for JR as of the last couple weeks at least.
Coming into the final corners then, have a look at that. Beautiful cut of the second last corner for Pablo. He straightened up the run into the final turn nicely as a result of that, and he draws a little closer down the start-finish straight. Bit more speed coming into turns 1 and 2. And the exit will belong to JR Williams. A little bit of an extra gap that he has to make up there. It seems like Pablo is making up all his time on corner entry at the moment. A little bit of a wiggle there, a slight lock-up for Pablo coming into turn 3. That'll extend the gap for the lead of the race. He's got to be careful not to drive too hard at this stage.
Yeah, doesn't want to overheat the tires, which is a lot easier to do, especially on his fronts, riding in that dirty air behind JR. But those little wiggles, if you keep having those, that's going to add up as well. That's going to take tire life away.
Yeah, certainly is. These two neck and neck for the championship battle in the pro class. It's been a magnificent fight all through the season, as there's been a problem for Andrew Ellis further on back there. He just slipped back behind Victor Couto and Hugo Galaz, and he's behind Cochrane now as well. So apparently Andrew Ellis not having the best of times at the moment. We're going to see what happened to him here. He just ran deep coming into turn 5, caught the curb, caught the gravel, and a very slow, sedate run back onto the racetrack.
Yeah, good job from Andrew not to have an aggressive re-entry onto the track. Easy to do there, especially if you're frustrated with yourself. Looks like he just overcooked the entry and ran wide.
Yeah, you can certainly come back.
Someone using push to pass, or at least was, is Blake Ziti, trying to run down Brett Thurman. And he has. He is right all over that gearbox of Brett Thurman, at least he was, until the exit of turn 2.
Yeah, good stuff from Blake Ziti. We're getting a little bit of extra heat into this AM class lead battle. Jeff Groff's still right there, as well as, oh my lord, Pablo. He tried on JR there, but he went way too deep in turn 5. And now the gap for the lead ballooning out to 1.3 seconds.
Yeah, we'll get a replay of it here spooled up, as we got it right here for you on board with Pablo. Gonna see what happened here.
Oh, just too late on the brakes. Missed his braking point and locked up into the corner. Good recovery, but that's unfortunately made him lose touch with JR for the time being. Good job on him not to clean him up.
Yeah, here is Pablo just sitting there biding his time, waiting for JR to make a mistake, and he's the one that makes a mistake. Very clearly overshoots his braking marker and catches him by surprise. Fortunate not to run over JR, like you said, and to gather that car back up.
Yeah, good heads-up driving from JR Williams as well. You saw how he opened up the entry to the corner. He saw Pablo coming and decided, okay, car preservation is the priority here. Just late apex the hairpin and keep myself in the lead. Well, we'll see what Pablo can do to keep this battle going at the front, but Blake Ziti losing a tiny bit of time to Brett Thurman on the last lap as his overtake was recharging. It looks like it's there we go. Yeah, just finished recharging just then, so Blake can now use that push to pass once again. And I think he's going to wait until the exit of the hairpin, the next hairpin at least, to get that extra power going.
Yeah, and it needs to be careful on that usage. There's still 30 minutes left of this race, so still a lot of opportunity to use that. Because meanwhile, the driver ahead of him, Brett Thurman, he hasn't used any.
Yeah, Brett's got a...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say he's got a lot more in the tank.
Yeah, and I was just going to say he hasn't really needed to use it.
No, he's nice and comfortable in the AM class lead. Same for JR Williams as well as Pablo Valenzuela Uribe. He's both of our overall leaders, not seeing much need to use the extra power at this point in the race, but I'm sure they'll start using it later on to try and close that battle up. So across the line on this next lap, it looks like Pablo has made a great recovery from the error that he made on the last lap and has set a 1:31.5 at the front of the field. And that is a new fastest lap of the race. Though it was only 0.3 of a second faster than Brett Thurman, who's managed to keep up some fantastic pace here. And that'll be helping SRTE in the Teams Championship. Thurman and Ziti currently leading that 1-2 in the AM class for that team.
Yeah, and 0.3 only faster for Brett Thurman, but more importantly, half a second faster than our leader, JR Williams. That gap now down to 0.6.
Yeah, this is exactly what we were expecting from Pablo. He may have lost the lead at the very start of the race, but he has the pace advantage. He just needs to make use of it.
Yeah, and JR is going to be hoping for another mistake out of Pablo, hopefully not as significant or terrifying as the one previously, but nonetheless hoping for a mistake, as well as Pablo hoping for a mistake out of JR, and hoping that he can keep his card in one piece as he tries to run back down JR Williams and see if he can get a move done on him.
Across the line again, Pablo's ever closer. JR Williams sets a 1:31.9, but Uribe runs ever faster, 1:31.493. Now the fastest lap of the race, and we can see that Pablo has a lot of potential here, but it's a case of getting close enough. I think he's waiting for the opportunity to use overtake, get the extra power down the straight, and then he can make the move up the inside, because for the time being this lead battle is just slow moving at the moment. I mean, the cars are moving fast obviously, but we're not seeing much slicing and dicing between these two. They're just waiting for the opportunity.
Yeah, now granted the last 2 laps have been half a second each faster for Pablo, but keep in mind folks, there's 4 straightaways on this track. So the draft is heavily playing a role in those quicker lap times for Pablo.
Coming out of the hairpin, then straighten up the wheel as soon as you can, and then you have the opportunity to make up some time in the slipstream. It's been a good recovery from Pablo after his earlier error, and you see that, man, 4/10 per lap, nearly half a second per lap over the last 2 laps running. I think we'll see a bit of a smaller gap between the times this time around, because Pablo's right up against JR now. But across the line we come, and it's going to be a further improvement of just 0.07 of a second. But that's going to be enough. So JR had a much better line through turn 2 than Pablo did that time around. I think Pablo might be working his fronts a bit too hard.
Yeah, and that dirty air off the car ahead, not going to be doing any favors as well. Closer you get, the less air on the tires, less grip you have. So much easier to slide these front ends around when you're very near the car ahead of you. So you got to be careful. You got to change your lineup a little bit just to try and adjust for that, account for that less downforce. Whether that means backing up your corner ever so slightly or getting out of line ever so slightly, get a little air on the wing, whatever it may be, will help you in that corner if you're right on the gearbox of the car ahead.
We're almost at the halfway point of the race, and when they cross the line on the next lap, we'll be halfway through. And I think it'll be at that point that drivers decide, okay, now it's time to start using the extra power. This battle plus the battle between ZT and Groff are the only 2 real close fights on the track at the moment. The race has settled into a nice rhythm, but we've seen in the past, haven't we, Mark? Whenever things seem settled down in Super Formula, that's when things start to get interesting.
It really is. So here in the next few laps, everything could change. The whole story, the whole dynamic, everything could change here in the course of just a few laps. Pablo having maybe a little bit of a peak there, at least it looked like it did, or maybe he just realized he was too close to the grass there and jerked back. I don't know, but nonetheless, still right on the gearbox, not in a position to make a move at the moment. Just riding in the wake of JR Williams, hoping to pressure him into a mistake.
Yeah, nice aggressive run into the fast S's. but he'll lose out a little on the exit. One thing that I have noticed is that JR has barely any hints of oversteer or snapping at all out the front. But Pablo, in his efforts to catch up, has been having those little micro slides through the likes of turn 4 and exit of turn 2. So that tells me that Valenzuela is running... oh, there we go. There's the first usage of overtake we've seen from Uribe there.
And JR
is going to have to wait a while.
JR responds. He's using his as well.
And both
just like
on
that,
recharge.
Yep. But I think this means the fight is on officially.
Yep, wait another 2 minutes and we'll have that extra power back to use. But what all of that is telling me is that Pablo's running a bit more of an aggressive setup than JR is. Whenever we've talked to Pablo in interviews, he's always talked about how Final Lap Sim Racing team is putting a lot of effort into the setups for these cars. He's just trying to get them as inch perfect as he possibly can for the best pace possible. JR, meanwhile, it seems running a bit less of an aggressive setup. He can take it a bit easier. He doesn't have to worry as much about sliding the rear end around. He can focus a bit more on setting those lap times, hitting those apexes. But Pablo, the benefit, of course, comes in overall pace. The ultimate pace of that 23 is better than the 13, but a bit more potential for errors.
Yes, a lot more twitchiness, snappiness out of the final lap machine. JR electing for a more stable. It seems to be almost just fast enough, but it seems also a lot more stable in the more technical sections of the track, which will help his tire wear longevity over Pablo's for the length of the race. But it's not slowing Pablo down any from making any aggressive moves or angles into these corners. As you see through that final section, he's just able to really close in on JR through that little quick chicane a lot better than JR gets through there.
Yeah, it's that exit of the final corner that Pablo really sets up for the rest of the lap. And once again, aggressive on the way into turn 3, but he loses out on the exit. JR's just got a much more stable rear end. He can push more on the exits of the corners here. We have 14 laps to go in the race, 13 when they cross the line next. So now is the time. You have to start thinking about when are we going to use that push to pass. Pablo is close enough this time. He might be able to use it out of the hairpin if he plays his cards right. The recharge period is over for both of these drivers. Now the question is, can Pablo get close enough at the apex that he might have a run at the next braking zone? It's closer than it's ever been between these two. And for now, Williams, the faster of the two cars, Valenzuela not able to get down to his ultimate pace and still not using any of the extra power.
Yeah, and that is the longest straightaway of the circuit, so if you're going to use it anywhere, that's one of the spots to use it, or right now onto the start-finish straight.
Yeah, JR taking a bit of a wider entry into the final chicane, but he managed to translate that into a nice exit. These two are sprinting away from the front of the field. Brett Thurman and Blake Ziti are still fighting over third spot as well. Both battles on screen at the moment. We have Jeff Groff still a bit of a background presence in this fight. Thurman and Ziti, of course, teammates at SRTE, so they don't want to run into each other. But Jeff Groff will certainly be hoping for something like that so that he can get a surprise win, as there's the move from Pablo Valenzuela Uribe. Gets past JR Williams into the hairpin and into the lead.
Now that was a statement pass right there. Pablo sending it in deep on JR Williams and just ever so slightly squeezing up in front of him. No contact was made. It was a clean pass, but it was a bold pass.
Yeah, and it was an overtake button pass as well. You see that our leaders are both on recharge again, so it was a similar situation to what we saw before, as JR didn't quite get on the throttle as well as he'd like out of the hairpin there. Now that Pablo's back in the lead, I get the feeling he might try to drive away here, unless JR decides to dial up the aggression and use more of that extra power.
I have to tend to agree with you there, Reese. Pablo does have the quicker overall car, but with the 4 straightaways, that allows for a lot of draft potential to keep JR within reach of Pablo for the remainder of this race. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Meanwhile, Pablo up to a 6/10 of a second lead over JR currently.
Indeed. Looked to me as well, we saw a move between Gabriel Hopper and Frankie Brzezowski, and Gabriel getting into 7th place as a result. Oh dear, that's Manuel Vargas getting spun around there. Not too sure which car was involved there, but yeah, that's not ideal for Manuel. That's a fair hit to the rear suspension. It looks like that's Brzezowski who was trying to get up the inside of him there, and then banging wheels, and around went the final lap sim racing team at number 52. So yeah, Vargas, obviously driving the same car, a similar setup to Pablo at the front of the field, but not quite able to get the results, and that's a big part of why. It just seems like poor Manuel has been involved in incidents way too often for his liking.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that as well. Manuel, no doing of his own, just getting caught up in that incident. Frankie looks like just misjudged the braking zone a little bit, because he did back out of it earlier than Manuel, but I guess was just lifted off the brake pedal a little too long, and unfortunately got into the side of Manuel to spin him around. Fortunately, it looks like no damage done to either car, so they will keep on going. We still have all 15 cars in this race. Meanwhile, the top fight right now between JR and Pablo getting larger and larger. It's up to 8.5 tenths of a second between our leaders. I think Pablo, if he doesn't make any more mistakes, I think this is his race to lose.
Yeah, well, he set a new fastest lap of the race just a few moments ago, so I think now Pablo's got some clear air in front of him. He can take full advantage of the true pace of that car. Thurman and Ziti, meanwhile, here for AM class lead, and Ziti was trying to dial up the aggression there using a bit of overtake on recharge now, and we'll have to wait 2 minutes to use it again. It just seems like this battle is ebbing and flowing. Occasionally Ziti will get ever closer to Thurman, but I think it's a similar situation to the one between Pablo and JR at the front, though I would presume that Thurman and Ziti are running the same setup. It just seems like Brett isn't pushing the car as hard. He's nailing his apexes a little better. Ziti, it seems a little more on the edge of grip.
Yeah, a little bit, possibly a little bit more trimmed out, which could lead to that twitchiness of being on the edge. But surprisingly still, even with the amount of times Blake has pressured Brett has not still felt the need to use his push to pass. He is still fully charged and ready to defend his position at all costs, but yeah, I just find that interesting.
Oh,
he has...
Oh, Thurman just spun.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. I think you cursed him there, Mark.
A little bit of the commentator's curse there for Brett Thurman, as he is no longer... He no longer has a rear wing.
He lost it all by himself coming out of the hairpin. Just too much power, and the car let go on him. Oh, that's such a shame for Brett Thurman. He was controlling that AM class lead battle so nicely, but now he'll have to make his way back into the pits and spend a long time getting that car repaired, if he even comes back out at all. Usually when the rear wing is lost in an open wheel car, that's it.
Yeah, it looks like just a little bit too much on the power. The car comes around and he just backs it up into the wall. Very unfortunate for Brett Thurman. Had a great race going. Like you said, managing that third place phenomenally. But it has all gone wrong for Brett Thurman. He is going to make the trek down pit road. At least I would assume so. Yep, there he comes. And that is just an agonizing crawl.
Yeah, difficult pit road entry at Motegi here. You have to negotiate a chicane on the way in. I cast my mind back to the opening round of the season at Red Bull Ring, where we had a car that lost its rear wing but still continued on. No mechanical black flag for them. I was wondering if Thurman was going to try the same thing, but he'd much rather get into the pits and try and see what repairs he can get done. Very unfortunate for the number 69. That will put the number 50 into the AM class lead. ZT versus Groff now for the win, and didn't look like the best of exits from the hairpin for ZT. We'll see if Groff can get himself another good result for Go Squadra, or if Christian Jasper can make up some of the time that he's lost there. He's a full 10 seconds behind Groff as things stand.
Yeah, a lot of these drivers towards the back half of the field have had little bitty mistakes, errors, whatever you want to call them, that have just caused these guys to spread out ever so slightly, 2, 3, 4 seconds apart from each other. Looks like our closest battle right now is actually between 7th place Frankie Brzezowski, as you see on screen, and 8th place Cristobal Valenzuela. So these guys within a half a second of each other now. Cristobal going to be looking to pressure Frankie here momentarily. But yeah, just small mistakes. I mean, it does not take much in these cars.
No, it doesn't, and Brzezowski's still carrying damage to the left side of his front wing from that earlier contact with Manuel Vargas, so he is compromised through the fast corners, and you'd say pretty much every corner around here. When we say slow corner, they're still taking the apex at nearly 60 miles an hour, so you know you have to remember that slow is merely relative when it comes to these cars. You need that front wing in prime shape all the way around this place, and Cristobal will be making up further time here. Took 7 tenths out of Brzezowski on the last lap, and I would assume that it's going to be a similar story on this lap as well.
Yeah, and you can really see the effect of that damage when the car is coming right at you towards the camera. The left wing end plate just kinked in about a half a tire width, and that's really going to hurt him on the right-hand turns, I would have to say, because that's where most of that downforce would be, I guess, going on the left side of that wing, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a aerodynamicist, so I'm not going to quote that, but that would be my thoughts, as Frankie just locks up a little bit into that right-hander. So now Cristobal is right on his gearbox coming into the start-finish straight.
And a much better line through the final corner as well. Brzezowski's going to respond with some push-to-pass usage. He will stay ahead on the way into turn 1, but as we've seen, Brzezowski's front grip is at a premium right now, and Cristobal's going to have to wait for another move.
Yeah, and now with Brzezowski going on that push-to-pass for just the front straight, he is now compromised for the next 80 seconds, while Cristobal could make a move at any point within that time, and Frankie would be powerless to defend it.
Yeah, let's see what the exit is like then from turn 5. Nice and straight for Cristobal Valenzuela, and he'll make up a little more time coming into the S's here. This is where Brzezowski's going to be the most compromised with his front wing damage, and you see him just edging ever closer to that potential 7th spot here.
Oh, Brzezowski goes a little bit wide.
Yeah, a little deep there coming into the left-hander. And this could be the chance that Cristobal's looking for. He needs to be careful of the run from Manuel Vargas behind as well. Vargas has caught up to these two as it's defensive for Brzezowski. And, well, the overtake usage is on here. Is he close enough for a move under brakes? He is. He gets alongside, and Brzezowski has to give him room on the exit. He'll have the inside then for the third last and second last corners here. And turning in is Cristobal Valenzuela, and coming in to the wall for the both of them. Car parts littering the side of the racetrack. Cristobal Valenzuela and Frankie Brzezowski are out of this race.
Oh my goodness. What an implosion of dramatic fashion between Cristobal and Frankie, our championship AM class leader, out of the race. Not going to return. 7 minutes left with... Oh my goodness. It's all gone wrong.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the lack of front grip for Brzezowski at a tighter line coming into the final chicane there, and Valenzuela was trying to turn in there. Probably wasn't expecting Brzezowski to fight back as hard as he did, but yeah, that's just unfortunate. So we have lost Brzezowski, we've lost Valenzuela, and we've lost Thurman from this race.
And as you just saw in that last replay right there, there was a lot of ghost contact, so there was no actual physical contact made until after the spin. But that is extremely unfortunate for those two drivers.
Yeah, very unfortunate indeed. Well, it's the opposite fortune for Pablo Valenzuela. Uribe at the front of the field, new fastest lap, and could get into the 1 minute 30 second bracket on race pace, which would be incredible to see. This is the closest battle on screen at the moment. ZT and Groff still fighting over second, as here we see Brett Pancari trying to chase down Hugo Galaz for the last position in the top 10.
Yeah, Brett Pancari having a great race, just minding his business, minding his P's and Q's. Having a great top 10 run here. But he's got to be careful, Reese, because he is very low on his push to pass. He is almost at that red light limit.
Yeah, he's used quite a bit of it, hasn't he? And hopefully he'll have enough to serve him well in the final 4.5 laps or so of this race. So we shall see if there are any further developments in this race. Once again, it's been a case of survival. Super Formula, very hard cars to drive at pace. They're super fun to drive, though. We have a lot of good things said about these cars when they came out a couple of seasons ago, and the drivers. It really shows who's got the best control over a full race here. Just because once you lose these cars, it's very easy to recover them. Sorry, not very easy to recover them. You know, if you see a small error in maybe a GT3 or something like that, you can easily recover. But in these cars, you can have all the pace in the world, but one mistake and you're potentially out of the race.
Yeah, and it's a very minor mistake at that could take you out. You know, like I said before, it does not take much. These cars don't have ABS. They don't have traction control. So one quick little overstep of a brake pedal or overstep of a gas pedal, the car could lose control and veer off into a wall or another vehicle. It just does not take much. These cars are... they're just like F1 cars in real life. They are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very, not fragile, but very, like, finite, I guess, maybe?
Yeah. Snappy, low margin for error, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, Christian Jasper making his way into the final 4 laps of this race for him. We've got 3.5 laps left for our leaders, and Jasper has had a lovely consistent race. He is the car with the most positions gained in the field, up 5 spots. Started all the way down in 10th and took great advantage of the problems for Vargas and Couto, and granted 3 more positions thanks to Brzezowski, Valenzuela, and Thurman crashing and retiring from this race. That's something that we've seen quite a bit from Christian Jasper over PRL Super Formula runnings, the 2 seasons that this league has run for. Jasper's been one of the drivers who's just kept it quiet. He's kept it consistent. He's kept it out of the wall.
Yeah, and just kind of been one of those drivers back in the back, not in the back, but like laying back, just minding his own business and having positions fall his way and getting good finishes because of it. So just, you know, it comes back to my point of, in order to finish the race, you got to keep it on track.
Yeah, that you do, and well, here's an opportunity then for him to use a bit more of that extra power to try and make up the gap to Jeff Groff, which now sits at 14 seconds. It's a pretty crazy gap to make up, and with only 2 laps remaining in the race, actually...
I got faith in you, Christian. You can do it.
Yep, I got faith in him too. We'll have to see then if Jeff Groff will be able to make his way forward here on Blake Ziti, as I'm just noticing there's 1.5 minutes left on the race timer, and that's basically a lap here. So I think, yeah, I think the leaders will be able to make it around for one more lap from here. Only just. 45-minute race time here. We've been in danger of going time certain at some events in the past, but yeah, usually it's been just a case of running the race, completing the full distance, and away you go. It's going to be white flag next time by here for Pablo Valenzuela Uribe, who's now ballooned this lead out to nearly 5 seconds over JR Williams. And though he hasn't been without errors, Pablo has clearly been the class of the field today.
Yeah, and that one error that Pablo showed earlier in the race could have easily meant disaster for not only himself, but for JR as well. So very fortunate for both of those drivers to be where they are currently. And great heads-up driving from JR to be aware of what happened, or what was happening. And great driving abilities from Pablo to be able to recover that car, because he was slideways like crazy.
Oh, indeed he was. Well, down into the turn 5 hairpin he goes, and just sedate and smooth here at the front of the field, using the overtake button to its full effect over the full course of this lap. He's just going for the fastest lap as well, and trying to get it by as much of a margin as he can. It's obviously an extra point in hand for the fastest lap of the race, and look at that, he is using it all the way to the very end. 4.3 seconds over JR Williams now. All Pablo has to do is cruise to the finish. With the win comes 55 points. With pole position and fastest lap, that's a further point each. So with JR finishing in second, looks like Pablo's going to make up 5 points in the championship standings here and bring the gap for the championship lead down to just 3 points going into the final round at Zandvoort. Pablo Valenzuela Uribe takes a beautiful victory at Mobility Resort Motegi for the penultimate round of PRL Super Formula 2024 Season 3. Blake Ziti, congratulations, will come across the line to win the AM class ahead of Jeff Groff and Christian Jasper. And, oh, wow, JR Williams took the fastest lap back on the final lap there. So, I mean, that's going to be one less point for Pablo Valenzuela Uribe, but still only 4 points in it at the final round of the championship. This is going to be very interesting indeed.
Oh my gosh, this is gonna make for a super intense fight between Pablo and JR at the end of the race, or at the the final race of the season next Thursday evening. As our last few drivers start crossing the line here, is Brett Pancari coming through the final chicane section of the track. Riding on board with Barry Cochran coming down the straightaway now.
And Barry is about 18 seconds behind Andrew Ellis, who's just crossed the line. It's been a good, consistent race from Barry, taking advantage of incidents for others, and he'll get 3 free positions out of that. So the 7-Eleven crosses the line, and that will officially end the running here at the final lap. So Pablo Valenzuela Uribe by 3.8 seconds, pole position and the win, but JR Williams in second, taking the fastest lap, closing that championship gap that he currently holds. Blake Ziti and Jeff Groff are your top 2 in AM, with Christian Jasper 5th overall, Gabriel Hopper quiet race into 6th. Vargas and Kuto losing 1 position each, thanks to Vargas getting turned and Victor Kuto making a mistake by himself coming out at turn 4. Galaz and Punkari round out your top 10. Andrew Ellis and Barry Cochran are your last 2 finishers. We saw Brzezowski and Cristobal Valenzuela unfortunately come together in the final corner there and both retire. Brett Thurman was leading the AM class but lost it all by himself out of turn 5 and had to retire with too much damage from his rear end hit with the wall. So that will bring us in to our post-race coverage here. It looks like we'll be waiting a little bit for Pablo to join Discord, so we might go in reverse podium order here. Blake Ziti is the first driver to join us here, 3rd place overall and winning the AM class. Congratulations, Blake. It was a little bit of a quieter race than we usually used to in Super Formula, but again, it was all about survival.
Yeah, for sure, guys. This track could catch you off guard here and there. Definitely have to be easy on the throttle, on especially like T1, and coming out of T2 is treacherous at times, so survival is the game here, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it must have been heartbreaking to see Thurman in such a solid lead, spinning himself out there in front of you.
Yeah, for sure. It's a bummer to see him go out. He was running really great, and I always tell him, I was like, if you just put a little bit more time in, man, you'll be killing all of us, because he just shows up and runs the pace. So shout out to him. He was running really great.
Well, with the AM class win for you here tonight, looking at the championship standings, you might just be able to make up some further points on Christian Jasper. And with Frankie Brzezowski, unfortunately, out of the race here, it looks like it's going to be neck and neck between all 3 of you for the AM class championship coming into next week.
Yep, the points are really close. It was a nail biter coming into here. I woke up with butterflies this morning, silly enough to say. But it feels good to come out here and be able to get a podium and show up.
Indeed. Well, hopefully we'll be talking to you again after the conclusion at Zandvoort next week, Blake. Congratulations again.
Thanks, fellas. Have a great night.
Blake Ziti there, AM class winner and 3rd overall. 2nd overall stood by with Mark, JR Williams.
Yeah, I've got JR standing by with me up here in the booth. JR, congratulations on P2. A much better result this time out rather than last week. But yeah, nonetheless, just a awesome fight there for the first majority of the race with Pablo. What were your thoughts with that fight for the win?
I mean, he had better pace, so I knew if he got by, he had it. So I was honestly just trying to drive very conservative to not spin the tires or anything, because it is hard to pass here. I don't know if he was trying to move or if he messed up, and I think we were within an inch of both dying again, which would not have been great. So I figured that move was coming again, and honestly, it's more important to finish for the championship than to risk death there. So we'll try our best next week. It's a close fight. I think I'm the underdog, pretty obviously. So I'll just give it my best.
Yeah, with tonight's finish, JR, the championship points battle has tightened up. It should be about 4 points the difference, with you still on top currently leading the charge. Does that make you nervous going into next week at all?
Oh, I was nervous going into this week. He's just been so strong. I was so the last couple laps I backed up a little bit to try to save tires and pushed for that fastest lap, which was a huge deal. Gives me a little bit more of a chance next week. So
yeah, we noticed that as well. Gave you 1 extra point to fight with. And regarding that move from Pablo, it looked more like a unintentional error where he may have just missed his braking points from us up here in the booth. But yeah, very fortunate that you all did not collide and were able to continue on. More so impressed that he was able to hang on to that car because it was very slideways. But nonetheless, JR, you did a fabulous job tonight running in P2 for the finish. And we look forward to next week's fight for the championship because it's all going to come down to that. Do you look forward to next week's race? Do you enjoy the track at all?
I don't think I've raced since on the new Zandvoort. I used to do the old one all the time in GT3. I've not raced these cars there, so it'll be interesting. I got some learning to do.
Well, we look forward to seeing the results from next week as well, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again up here in the booth after the race is over. But before we let you go, JR, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to real quick?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to a really awesome guy in PRL, Martin Crisp. He's just an absolute gentleman, and I know he's been going through a tough time, and I think I've given him a shout out before, but he deserves all the shout outs. So shout out to him, his friends and family, and I hope he is back racing with us next season.
Absolutely. Well, folks, you heard it first from JR Williams, finishing P2 tonight. And next up, I believe, is going to be Pablo Valenzuela Uribe standing by with Reese.
Yes, indeed. Well, Pablo, thanks for joining us once again. Honestly, a brilliant drive from you, not without its wobbles, but you were clearly the fastest car out there today.
It was a tough one, really. The weather, the track temps, the weather in itself in the race was pretty tricky. Has to adjust some things at last time, so the car was pretty good, but it has its moments that wasn't that comfortable at all. But in Racing, the race was pretty good. GR had an amazing start. One of his patented starts. So he had a great start, and I tried to keep with him. Meanwhile, the race was developing, the car was growing, and feel pretty confident. And I had a big moment trying to stay behind him, trying to put the car a little bit more comfortable with the brake bias, and have a huge moment. And it was completely my fault, and I apologize to him. Was pretty close, but in the end, was a great race.
Yeah, in the end, contact was not made, and you guys were able to continue on. Well, you missed out on getting the fastest lap, though I could see you trying there at the end, and you did have it until JR got it on the final lap. Essentially, by my calculations, that brings the championship gap down to 4 points going into the final round at Zandvoort. So it's basically down to nothing between you and JR for the title. Do you think you can do it?
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty confident, but races are races, and we have to wait for the next one. I really love Zandvoort. It's one of my favorite tracks, so I hope I can be pushing hard there too.
Excellent stuff, Pablo. Well, we send our congratulations to you once again, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you again this time next week.
Thank you, guys. Let me send some greetings to the shoutouts to the guys at home, my family, my girlfriend, and Isidora, my sister that is in Australia enjoying the life over there. And of course, of my team. Final up. Shout out for them.
Final lap sim racing team on top once again in PRL Super Formula. That was Pablo, our race winner there. And that's going to conclude proceedings for tonight here, Mark. Two really good races in both of our championships, but it all comes down to the final round next week. GR86 and MX5 going to VIR, and Super Formula going to Zandvoort, another classic track to end off the season.
Yeah, it's really a shame that both of these series are going away. They have put on some amazing racing this season. Unfortunately, the people just did not want to race it for some reason or another. But really been a pleasure to call tonight's proceedings with you, Reese, and looking forward to next week as well, especially the Super Formula Championship battle between both Pro and Am. Going to be a lot of drama, going to be a lot of action. Guys, you do not want to miss that one. Please tune in next Thursday for your conclusion of the PRL racing season.
Yes, indeed. It's all going to come to an end for 2024 Season 3. I'm Reese Gardner, Mark Kalin alongside me in the comms box, Hugo Luis behind the scenes producing here on RaceSpotTV. We'll see you next time.